What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and the road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams now takes us to Gainesville, Florida. Man, have I been excited to talk about this team right in front of me, whose logo is behind me, because the Florida Gators are poised for a massive season out of the SEC in 2025. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video and helping to support the channel. It does mean a lot to me. If you want to support the channel even further, please do what it says below me. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because turning notifications on ensures you won't miss an upload during prediction season, and you especially don't want to miss your favorite team. If you would like to support me further, I am a sports media professional now as a sports media grad, delving on into that world. If you want to see all the cool stuff I do while still getting updates what goes on this very YouTube channel, please give me a follow Twitter or X and Instagram at TailgateNate29. Feel free to even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. Thank you for supporting and interacting with me and the channel in any way, shape, or form that you do so or want to do so. And with all that said, done, out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most exciting videos to me this season, as Florida could be one of the most exciting teams, led by Billy Napier. This is the Florida program that has been very patient with Billy Napier, but that patience is running thin. This year, it feels like a do-or-die year for Billy Napier. The schedule is brutal. You have a lot of good talent returning, however, which we're about to talk about here in a little bit, because we do preview and predictions on the channel like this. We start out by looking at the roster. The offense being to my left, the defense being to my right. At the end of the video, we'll go through the Florida football schedule. It's a daunting one again this year, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. Tell you what I think about the Florida Gators in 2025. Let's do it. Been very excited to talk about the Gators this season. Right down below me are your returning production ranks. They sort of look at the production you have returning, as well as including any portal pieces that you have put in to this program as well. Now, you'll notice not too many portal pieces, but very, very highly ranked in recruiting this year. Recruiting and portal ranks are according to 24/7 Sports. All right, your offensive coordinator this season, let's talk about the offense first, is Russ Callaway, and you are going to have one of the, I think, most dynamic playmakers in the country at quarterback this season in DJ Lagway. 1,915 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions on around 60% completion percentage last season. Graham Mertz was the starter at the beginning of the year. Quickly, that got taken over by DJ Lagway, and they are going to be riding him fully in 2025. He's also a pretty darn good runner out of the backfield. Now, didn't necessarily show it to the fullest ability last season, but I think that production should get better for Lagway this year. He's pretty athletic there in that pocket, but at the very least, the expectations, the hype, the potential, they're all sky high for this kid, and as long as he can be a good decision maker with the football, I think Florida's going to have at least one of the better quarterbacks here in the SEC, if not, could have one of the best and most dynamic quarterbacks in the entire country. That's the expectation. That's all the hype. That's the potential on what this Lagway kid can hold. You saw flashes of it last season. Can't wait to see a full season of it here in 2025. As far as the as far as the talent, my apologies, that is going to feature around this Florida Gator team, well, you are going to be losing Montrell Johnson out of that backfield. Second leading rusher, had 593 yards and 6 touchdowns, and did lead the team among qualified runners with 5.9 yards per carry. However, this is the backfield that is still going to be left in tremendous shape, because you have a really, really talented kid that made his debut as a true freshman last season, led this team in rushing, and Jaden Baugh is set for a sophomore breakout season with some really good depth behind him. Talking about Jaden Baugh, 673 yards and 7 touchdowns last season, but again, there is a lot of good depth sitting behind him. Jacoby Jackson was the third leading rusher on this team, and he's seen a lot of football as a redshirt senior. Trayon Webb is back there as well, another really young kid, but also very, very talented. KD Daniels as a redshirt freshman, and I think even one or two freshmen that enter this room will probably redshirt, but still some solid talent sitting back there regardless. Led by Jaden Baugh, though, I think he's poised for an enormous breakout season this year, and a great backfield back for DJ Lagway. Your top two receivers from a season ago are in the NFL, so a new troop and a new group of players are going to need to step up there. Now, again, your top two receivers from last season were Elijah Badger, who's now in Kansas City with Patty Mahomes and the Chiefs, 806 yards and 4 touchdowns for him, and Shmari Dike, 783 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, the reason I say that other pieces have to step up is no one else had over 300 yards receiving last year. In fact, there is only one piece in Eugene Wilson that barely got over the 250 mark. That should well improve for Eugene Wilson this season. He only had 19 catches, but was able to muster up 14 yards per catch last season. Did have a touchdown, but again, him and just a lot of these other pieces like Khalil Jackson, Aiden Mizell, Tank Hawkins, and some other depth pieces will need to step up. However, you do add in a very, very nice experienced piece in J. Michael Sturdivant, who is going to, again, a guy that's seen a lot of football and could prove to be one of the leaders in this wide receiver room. He was with Cal in 2022, where he had his best season, 755 yards and 7 touchdowns, has been with UCLA over the past couple of seasons, and he's put up some solid numbers there, but J. Michael Sturdivant is still a very, very talented player that I think could give this Florida wide receiver room a very, very big boost, but at the very least is going to add some experience and overall depth to the room that DJ Lagway will be throwing to. As far as the tight end room goes, Hayden Hansen and Tony Livingston are both going to be coming back here to this room. Those two guys were your top and second overall leading wide receiver here to this room. You also and are going to have some solid depth behind them, some other really, really talented young pieces. But Hansen, 207 yards and a touchdown. Livingston, 109 yards and 2 touchdowns last season. That's going to act as sort of your tight end duo this year. I don't think any of them are going to see as much production as some of these wide receivers like Wilson, Sturdivant, and some others are going to have this season. But they will be some nice pieces this year, some extra good big bodies in run blocking, as well as, again, just some solid options to catch some passes. 4 starters return to this offensive line in what is a very, very key position. A very key position for this Florida team. I think in order to have the amount of success that Florida fans want this team to have this year, A, DJ Lagway has got to hit. I don't think there are that many questions about that. But B, this offensive line has got to be able to protect DJ Lagway. They've got to be able to open holes for this running back. They just got to be able to hold that fortitude. Now, they did a pretty solid job last season. Lagway, him alone, got sacked only 13 times last season. In about, I'd say maybe 250 or so dropbacks last year. That's not too bad of a ratio there. Really not that bad. I think you'd like to see some improvement this season overall, but this is a very, very key position. If the offensive line doesn't gel correctly, which it should, again, you have 4 starters coming back, but if there are some problems and things going on, a lot can fall apart for the Gator team this year. However, I expect it to be a very strong offensive line. Now, your defensive coordinator room is very, very crowded. You have 3 co-defensive coordinators according to the Florida Gators official athletics website. Ron Roberts is an executive head coach and probably serves as the primary defensive coordinator, but you also have Robert Bala and Vinny Sunseri that are listed as co-defensive coordinators there. So if you were, to want my just sort of guess, educated guess, I believe it would be Ron Roberts as that primary DC, but again, Bala, Sunseri, they have that co-DC title next to them, much like Roberts does as well. Strides in strength and conditioning, I think, are going to show on the field in a massive way. I think that is the primary focus, was the primary focus of Florida this offseason, was to just get your defensive guys stronger, get them better conditioned, and I think it's going to show here on the field this year. I think this is the Florida defense that's going to take a very nice step in the right direction. Despite all of their portal losses, top-end talent like Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp, and George Gums are going to be returning to this defensive front. Now, again, there is a ton of losses through the transfer portal on this defensive line. You're going to have Jack Pyburn, gone to LSU, TJ Searcy, gone to Texas A&M, Kelby Collins, gone to Bama, DeAndre Robinson, gone to UNC, Justice Boone, gone to Arkansas, and there are a couple more depth pieces that do leave this room. However, again, in saying that, Caleb Banks is the top end NFL level talent this year. He can be a really, really good player. Now, Banks last season, only 21 tackles, but 4.5 sacks from last year. Sapp is another really, really good player off the edge. Led the team in sacks last season with 7 of them, so you get your sack leader back. George Gums is another phenomenal talent. Could go in the NFL draft this upcoming April. The defensive line, I think, is still going to end up being a pretty strong unit here for Florida this year. Shamar James in the linebacking room is off to the pros, but you do get 3 very nice pieces coming back. You're going to have Miles Graham, you're going to have Grayson Howard, and you're going to have Jaden Robinson. They all come back to this linebacking unit. Again, Shamar James, your leading tackler out of the linebacker room, 2 sacks and 64 tackles, had an interception last season as well, but Robinson, 3.5 sacks. Pretty good number there. Howard, another top 10 tackler for you. And then Graham could end up being a pretty solid talent out of the backer room as well. Your lead tackler overall in Trikwezi Bridges. I apologize for mispronunciations. In fact, I'm going to get it right. Trikeways Bridges. I really wasn't too far off, but I do apologize for the mispronunciation at first. Trikeways Bridges is going to be going off to the professional ranks, and he absolutely deserves it. Really, really talented player, 69 tackles, 5 pass defended, 2 sacks last season, so you are losing him out of the defensive backfield. However, many very experienced pieces and high caliber freshmen, I think, are going to make for a scary force in this secondary. As far as experienced pieces, Devin Moore, Jordan Castle, Bryce Thornton, Dijon Johnson, and Sharif Denson are your projected starting 5 in the secondary this season. As far as some of those freshmen, Lagonza Hayward, Drake Stubbs are some of the highest recruits that Florida brought in to that 7th ranked recruiting class this year. They can make a good impact. You do have Michael Caraway Jr. as one of the very few adds through the transfer portal for Florida this season. He could make for a pretty big impact here as well, and there still is a lot of talent on this Florida back end. As far as their special teams room, well, your kicker Trey Smack is going to come back, and then Tommy Doman will transfer in here to this program to do the punting duties. So when you take a look overall at this Florida team, trenches, I think, are big key positions for you. Strength and conditioning, let's see how far that has come for the Gators this year. But it is with not a lot of doubt that I say DJ Lagway, I think, is going to hit. There's a lot of really good talent around him. I think a lot of guys are going to step up, even though the defense loses some good pieces. I think you have a lot of nice talent there. And this is the Florida team that should see that big jump here in 2025. How big of a jump, though? Let's find out by looking at their schedule. Well, here is the football schedule for the Florida Gators entering the 2025 season. But before we get to that, some numbers right below me, I just want you all to look at. They end for for your viewing pleasure. They just provide some context to how good the people in Vegas think Florida is going to be this year. These numbers are current as of recording this video, and they are subject to change as Vegas sees fit. The odds to win the conference, according to FanDuel, for the Florida Gators, plus 2,100. Now, that actually is pretty deep in terms of the list to hoist the SEC championship trophy. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the list. They're behind teams like Auburn, Texas A&M, and even Ole Miss. So Florida's got some pretty long odds there, according to, well, a lot of the other teams in the SEC to win the conference, and then plus 4,300 to win the national championship. Not as high as some, but not as low as others. They are for sure expected to be, if a lot of things go right, in that playoff mix. But you take a look at this schedule here, woo, it is brutal. Florida's got to win a lot of games this season, but they're going to start off with 2 wins right off the bat. They should be able to beat Long Island, and I think they're going to beat South Florida as well. Byron Brown is one of, I think, the better quarterbacks in the G5 ranks. He returns to the South Florida Bulls, but this is a Florida team that is too talented, and I like DJ Lagway a whole lot better. Well, then you really get on in to the slate of this schedule here, folks. 10 games against 10 power conference teams. Oh, and their SEC schedule makers didn't really do them many favors. You have some, again, really, really good teams out of the ACC on the schedule. Let's just go ahead and dive right on into it. On the road against LSU. Now, if DJ Lagway plays really well, this is the team that looks really, really good against Long Island and South Florida, maybe I would consider Florida possibly being able to win this game. But the way I see it right now, I think LSU is going to be really, really, really good. Garrett Nussmeier coming back at quarterback. Much like with Florida, you do have a guy by the name of Caden Durham who exploded as a true freshman last year and is poised for a sophomore breakout season. They are adding some really nice pieces into that wide receiver room from the portal. Nick Anderson, Barry, and Brown, they're both there. You're getting Harold Perkins back off of injury. If he stays healthy, he's one of the best defensive players in the country to pair with a dynamite defensive front, a really, really good secondary. I just think LSU has got this one, man. The Tigers beat the Gators and hand Florida their first loss of the season. Then you have to go back on the road, but you stay in state and you play the Miami Hurricanes. I think you're going to be able to win this one. Miami does have a lot of overturn this season, but there is a lot of nice talent entering Coral Gables this year. Carson Beck, a surprise transfer destination. He is coming over to play for this team in Miami, and as long as he can fix the interception issues and get back to 2023 for him, which I think is a very high possibility, I think Miami's going to hit on that talent. Lots of good transfers elsewhere. You do have some really good players coming back in the running back room. CJ Daniels, Keelan Marion, and some others transfer into the wide receiver room to replace all they lost, starting with Xavier Restrepo. The secondary is going to be rebuilt, and you lost some heavy hitters on the defensive line, but guys like Ahmad Moten, Akeem Mesidor, Ruben Bain, Wesley Basaint, I think are all going to be really good players in that Miami defensive front seven. But I think Florida's just going to get him here. I think DJ Lagway is going to be a little bit too explosive for a Hurricane defense that has got to see improvements this season. And I think Florida's defense is well equipped enough to handle what Miami's going to throw at them. And they don't have the grade A talent that they did last season. Not to say that again, all the names I listed offensively, running back Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle, CJ Daniels, Josiah Trader, Ray Joseph, and some of these other names in the wide receiver room, Elijah Lofton, the tight end, are bad players, but it's not the grade A talent they had last season. And I think Florida, they especially want revenge for that beatdown in Gainesville that they suffered last year. They will go on the road in Hard Rock, and I think they beat the Miami Hurricanes getting that win. You do have a bye week here before a massive showdown against the Texas Longhorns. Texas has got a lot of tough games, and they're going to be very battle-tested coming into this one. They're going to play the Ohio State Buckeyes already, as well as some other pretty tough, or I should say, I think another tough SEC game to kick things off. This is just one here that I got a feeling, Florida's going to be very competitive in, but look, you take a look at this Texas team, they are just way, way too talented. I mean, where do you even start with talking about this Texas team? Arch Manning is coming in to be that full-time starter at quarterback. CJ Baxter is back from injury. You pair him with Quintravion Wisner in the backfield. Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, and some highly rated blue-chip freshmen are back in that wide receiver room. A lot of blue-chip freshmen on the defensive side. Every level of the defense is absolutely ridiculous. Ethan Burke, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, Anthony Hill, Michael Taft, Malik Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo. The list goes on and on and on. Texas is probably the most talented team in the country this year. I don't see them losing that many games, this being their first SEC game, and after a bye week for the Longhorns as well, so I misspoke earlier. Texas, I do think, will hand Florida this loss here. But Florida rebounded after a loss against LSU. They beat Miami on the road. I think Florida's going to rebound after a loss here to Texas, and I do think they're going to beat the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, Texas A&M, another very, very talented team. Don't sleep on what Mike Elko and the Aggies are going to have cooking up this season. Marcel Reed, they feel like they found their guy at quarterback. Le'Veon Moss in the running back room. He's going to come back from injury and be a very nice piece. They hit it out of the park with some of these wide receiver transfers like Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. They do add in a former Florida player in TJ Searcy on the defensive line to pair with some of the other heavy hitters they have there. Linebacker room's going to be good. Some really nice pieces in that defensive backfield. This is a true toss-up game to me. I could really have gone either way with this thing, but I think Florida and DJ Lagway are going to be a little bit too dynamic, and overall, I think Florida is just going to have the better game plan here in this one. Again, really, really toss-up game. This one could really go either way for me, but I do see Florida winning that one there against Texas A&M. And then, hey, look at that. You'll win 2 straight games for the first time since week 1 and week 2, where I think you do beat the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Some interesting talent on the team. Just don't think it's going to be a good year for Jeff Lebby and company. And then you have the rivalry game in Jacksonville against Georgia after a bye week. And again, I think Florida is going to fall just short here. They haven't beat Georgia in a fairly long time. At least they haven't been able to beat them consistently for quite some time. And Georgia has been one of the big dogs barking at the top of college football. I don't think that's going to change much of this season, even with Carson Beck out. And yes, Gunnar Stockton, to me, has some questions to answer at the quarterback position. They got a lot of really nice pieces in the wide receiver room. The Georgia rushing attack should get better this season. It's a very, very deep room. You know that how that Georgia defense plays. And I think even with all it loses, there were some areas where it just wasn't as good as some of the Georgia defenses we've seen in the past. It's going to get a lot better this year. Again, a lot better compared relatively to what we've seen out of Georgia in the past. And I just think the physicality level, man, coming in here with some of the questions that Florida has about strength and conditioning, I think Georgia's going to be able to overpower them, give them a physical contest, and I do think Georgia beats Florida there in 2025. However, again, Florida, for the third time this season after a loss, rebounds nicely, and I do think they are going to be able to beat the Kentucky Wildcats. They lost a ton of high top-end talent through the transfer portal, but they're also bringing in one of the best portal classes in the country, Zach Calzada. Remember him? Yeah, he is still playing there. He's at Kentucky. Dante Dowdell, former Oregon Duck, and more formerly of Nebraska, does transfer in to be the running back there. They got some really nice wide receiver pieces, including a former Crimson Tide member in Kendrick Law. Some great defensive players return, and you bulk up that defensive front. I just, again, haven't seen that much impressive stuff from Zach Calzada, and I do think Florida is a lot more talented. They should win on the road against Kentucky, but the Wildcats can give Florida fits. They really can. On the road against Ole Miss, though, again, I just see Florida having trouble with this one. Simmons, that quarterback, Austin Simmons, is going to be an absolute dynamite player here for Ole Miss this season. You do have Logan Diggs back from injury to pair with Caden Lee, an entirely new wide receiver room that I think is going to hit it out of the park for him this season. As per usual, some defensive transfers come in, and even though I do think Ole Miss's defense is going to take a step back this season, I do think this is a game where Austin Simmons can have a really, really, really good day. And again, Ole Miss at this point, I already have a video out about them. They could be hanging right on the balance of a college football playoff spot. To me, 3 losses already. Florida's probably out of that running. I think Ole Miss will fight for their playoff lives at home and win that game, but I do see Florida winning out from here. So even though you lose 4 games this year, you win every other week, or I should say you win every game after the loss. I think they beat Tennessee here. Look, the Nico Iamaleava situation was frustrating and unfortunate, to say the least. It leaves you some questions about what Tennessee has got, on top of the fact that you're losing Dylan Sampson. A lot of that wide receiver room is rebuilt, and again, you're losing some star power defensively. And then Florida will beat Florida State. Will it be the same disaster they had last season? Not by a long shot. You got some good transfer pieces coming in, but I don't see Florida State beating Florida in the swamp, leading the Gators to an 8-4 record. Maybe not what a lot of Gator fans want. I think some Gator fans would really like that 9-3, even a 10-2, a record, the latter one of which I think is the ceiling for this Florida team. But this is going to be a very, very good team this year. I think they're going to be a lot better than what their record says they are, but the schedule, man, is really brutal. It's really tough. They're going to win some high caliber games this season, and DJ Lagway is a very good guy. I think 8-4 is enough to give Billy Napier another season, and we can see what Florida does next year. But for this year, 8-4 and a very, very tough road through the 2025 season. Let me know what you think about the Florida Gators in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. We'll be back tomorrow with some more preview predictions. Goodbye.